This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, here on August 6th, 2021. And folks, I have a guest today I've been trying to get on, I would say, for a good 4, maybe 5 years. I finally made that connection last year, but COVID prevented it. But a special shout out to a couple of people, Andrea Lito and Brenda Maggart, who helped me make that connection happen. Folks, I love this woman, absolutely love this woman. We have the star of Dressed to Kill and Carrie, the beautiful, the gorgeous, and absolutely looking 39, Nancy Allen. How do you do, Nancy?
Wow, what an introduction. I'm blushing. Thank you for that, Greg. Or should I call you Python?
Yeah, that's anyway, my DJ name, yeah.
I'm really happy to be here today, and I'm glad we could make this work out finally. And
yeah.
I had no idea it was 5 years. I only was really aware of this in the last year and change, but that's challenging enough on my end of things. So I'm really happy to be here with you.
I'm very, very happy. Love your hair. Very reminiscent of Dressed to Kill, you know? But I came prepared today. Look what I'm wearing.
Oh boy, look at that. That's pretty fabulous.
Yeah, I got this at my first con. Lisa Langlois of class of 1984 was on my show a couple times, and she invited me to my first con. It was in Toronto. It was the first time I'd ever traveled. I'd never traveled outside New Brunswick before. And Lisa asked me what was stopping me. And she invited me to assist her in Toronto at Horrorama. And she and I've remained friends. And this was one of 3 shirts I got. I got a Black Christmas one and a Suspiria one. But this is beautiful.
Fabulous.
There you are.
Here I am. Yes.
Yep. You got John Travolta. You got
Billy Cat.
William Cat. You got PJ over here with the hat, and Amy Irving, Betty Buckley.
You got the whole kit and caboodle there.
You got Sissy Spacek right there in the middle. Yeah, so I got this shirt, and I love this shirt, and I thought I'd wear this today. And I love your back. Yeah, I love your background. I love Dressed to Kill. Love Dressed to Kill. You know, I've got a few movies here. And of course, I want to start with Dressed to Kill, because that film celebrated its 40th anniversary last year, which is strange considering you're 40 or 39.
Yes, I know. It's just odd. It's all very confusing in my shoes, I'll tell you.
But look at that.
Wow, nice.
Yeah. I got this version, and I got this nice Criterion release.
Oh, they do such a beautiful job, don't they, Criterion?
Yeah. Oh,
they own
yeah.
most of my movies now, most of my good movies. They've got pretty much everything.
Well, you know what? I love this movie, and I'm hoping eventually to get Angie Dickinson. Dolly Reed Martin from Beyond the Valley of the Dolls is friends with her. And she get passed my information on, but Angie's never gotten back to me. But she said, if you ever get her, she says the sexiest hello. And I'm like, gee, I want to hear just that.
That's pretty funny.
But boy, I love this movie. And a lot of people, and I love The Shining, don't get me wrong. But when people talk horror films of the 80s, I'm like, I get disappointed if Dressed to Kill isn't brought up, because I think that is every bit as good as The Shining.
I would agree with you. I'm a big Stephen King fan. In fact, this morning I was doing a whole interview just based on Stephen King and his work and carrying all of that. But I love the book, The Shining. And I like a lot of things about the movie, but I don't think he got the end right. That's my opinion. I think the end of the book, well, he threw away the whole, ticking time bomb, if you will, in the book and took that out of the movie. So, but anyway, it's still a great movie and people love it. And, but I appreciate I appreciate what you said about Dress to Kill, because I think that is timeless. I think for that period, it was probably right up there with the best. And it was a good script from the get-go. It really was. It really didn't change much from Brian's original draft.
I'm going to tell you something. You did two things in this movie, and this is going to sound so funny, because I know that you do almost a near nude scene in the movie, but I'm not talking about that here. You did two scenes that totally turned me on in this movie, and you're going to find it funny what they are.
Okay.
One, I've seen many males do this, but seeing you do it in a feather boa, I love this. When you're running in the subway and you grab the subway rail and you haul yourself up over it, I'm like, yes! Please tell me that was you and not a double.
No, I did that. And I remember Brian saying to me, it was just like an idea. He says, "You think you could do that?" I said, "Yeah, I think I can." And it worked out.
I love that. That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Somehow someone captured a picture of that, and it ended up in the newspapers in New York, which is where we shot the film. So yeah, it's, I think a lot of people like that, especially the New Yorkers who would like to jump the turnstile.
And then the other scene, and of course we can be R-rated on here, but I'm going to have to for me to announce this scene, because I'm like, you got you and Dennis Franz in the police station, and I'll try to do this without the profanity, but he goes, "Who are you effing?" And that look on your face when you say F you, I'm like, oh my goodness, you look so sexy when you say that.
Well, thank you. I wasn't in my mind at the time, but I think that was the character's whole point of reference. She sexualized everything, I think.
Have you heard that before from anybody?
Never.
Well,
Never.
I'm the first. Those are two scenes that just make me go all tingly when I see that. And I'm like,
well, I'm so glad you like them.
But boy, that look on in your eyes, I'm like, if I were Dennis Franz, I'd be asking you out after that scene. But no, I love that. And those are two scenes that just stood out to me. But I really love the character of Liz Blake, and I know Brian De Palma takes a lot of heat for they say copy and Hitchcock, but you know what? I've had Alfred Hitchcock's granddaughter on the show back in 2016, and
wow.
And even she said that Brian De Palma was complimenting Hitchcock's work. That came from
nice.
Hitchcock, huh?
How nice that she said that.
That's
nice.
Teresa Karuba is her name, and even she said that, and she found it flattering. So, and of course, De Palma referenced Hitchcock a lot. Sisters is a reference to Rear Window, but it has its own spin with the Siamese twin thing. Phantom of the Paradise has a lot of references, an interesting take on the psycho shower scene.
Yes. Oh my
Plunger.
God.
Yeah. And Obsession has a lot of references to Vertigo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Dress to Kill, a lot of references to Psycho. But I also love the whole thing about dealing with transvestism and elements like that, which were kind of ahead of its time in this movie.
Well, yes. And, I just did an interview for another project that someone's doing about, it's called Queer for Fear, and it's a relationship to gay, lesbian, transsexual, blah blah blah, in relationship with horror and that genre, and how and why and all of that. And don't let me get lost in my train of thought here. So at the time that we made this movie, the big flutter was not about that. It was about my character and that calling calling him a misogynist and exploiting me, and and all of this kind of stuff. And I remember at that time literally sitting in a restaurant with a friend of ours, and we were having dinner. It was a small, like a tiny little place, and overheard this couple. There's like two couples having dinner, and everyone was talking about, Dress to Kill, and look what he does to his wife, and look how he makes her do these things, all of that. And I just couldn't stop myself, and I said, "Excuse me, you're talking about me. Do I look like somebody who would let somebody push me around?" Something to that effect. And they were like, she was just stunned, and I was thinking about it, thinking about all of that, and thinking about how today, what might happen if you made that movie today. The Liz character might be the transsexual, having, being the hooker and all, because a lot of them are sex workers, because that's sometimes the only kind of income. Anyway, and I thought, that would have been an interesting spin on things. And you could have had the killer just be a regular, psycho killer guy or whatever. So it just shows you how things evolve and change. And but yeah, nobody talked about any of that then. And that's why it's different now. And actually, what I'm finding is that group of people are not really offended by this movie for some particular reason, particularly when you realize, like, first of all, what did we know then about any of this? Nothing really. All of this is constantly evolving, and we are hopefully as a population, as a culture, evolving in what we know and what's okay to say or not say, and what's okay to say, 10 years ago, you really shouldn't say today. And well, I'm going to get on a whole thing about, we have to stop Xing people out and canceling everything.
Oh, yeah.
Because it wasn't appropriate. It's not appropriate today. Well, this is history. It's a part of history. So let's look at things, all things, and separate the art from the artist if we don't like the artist anymore, and continue to look at the work. That's my diatribe. Sorry.
Yeah, I get it too. Like, I mean, I still enjoy Kevin Spacey's work. I don't agree with what he's been accused of, but I've got a lot of his movies here. I'm not going to get rid of them because, I still enjoy the movies,
Yes, and it's the same with Woody Allen. I'm not going to stop looking at his movies. I love them, and I think he made an incredible contribution. He's yet to be convicted. I know there's been a lot of things, but anyway, separating it out doesn't matter what anybody thinks. I do think you separate the art from the artist and not throw it all out. It just makes no sense. Then where does it go? What about literature? What about really, really, really old literature? Do we get rid of that because maybe somebody, like little boys? I don't know. I mean, in my opinion, no. It's just so anyway. But getting back to Dress to Kill, which is what we're talking about. Yeah, there was no flutter about that then at all.
Yeah. I got a question. Was that your legs on the poster?
No, it's nobody's legs that was in the movie. It was just a piece of art that was developed.
Oh.
I know. I'm sorry to disappoint you. I do wish they were my legs. I really do. I wish they had asked me so I could take ownership of it.
I do like that poster, though. I got to admit, great poster.
I think so. I like it too.
Yeah. But at least you can own the subway jump or rail jump, and the only person I ever heard say "F you" and look sexy doing it. So you get to own that.
Well, thank you.
But no, I don't know when I saw this movie. I did see a screening of it. I don't know, must have been about 20 years ago now. I attended a midnight screening of it, and a nice scene on the big screen, But yeah, I love the character of Liz Blake, and of course, you worked with Brian De Palma in Carrie and home movies prior to this. But this is the role I always think of when I think of you, is this character. And I had Brandon Mager on the show. I think it was before the lockdown last year, and he said to me, he said, because he did Christmas Evil and he did one little scene in Dress to Kill, and he had a conversation with me about that scene. He says there was a scene that was cut, and he said all that really happened was his character and your character he just needed somebody to talk to. Do you remember that?
I do. It was a lovely scene, and he is just a lovely human being, as you know, because you've spent time talking to him. And he was so perfect because he had that, you know, that vulnerability and naivete, and I can remember. I don't remember a lot about the scene. I do remember that. I think it was hard. She was uncomfortable. I kind of remember pouring a drink and walking around and talking to him and just kind of wanting to get on with it. And he just wanted to be with her. And I think she kept trying to seduce him. And that's what I'm remembering. And the thinking, as I recall, Brian telling me the reason that scene was cut was because in the context of the whole of the picture, in order to keep her character more vulnerable in what occurs afterwards, you don't want to, it's just something you don't want to see her doing. You don't want to see her, you know, trying to seduce this guy. He felt. I never saw the scene, so I didn't even see it in dailies, so I can't tell you, but I enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed working with, Brandon is a wonderful actor.
Yeah.
And he says so much just with his expression, with his eyes, and what you feel from him. He's just a lovely, lovely, lovely person.
Yeah, I connected with him on Facebook, and I know he does a lot of writing, and so
yes.
I see a lot of those updates. And yeah, I had a nice chat with him, but I found that quite interesting. You know, it kind of reminded me a bit of Jane Fonda and Clute.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, Anne Roth, who did the costume design for Clute, also did the costume design for Dress to Kill. And Anne was great. I loved her. She asked me if I wanted to go to some of the bars that she knew that the call girls went to. And I've always regretted not taking her up on it because I thought, oh, no, I don't want to do that. I don't know why I was so inhibited about it. But she talked to me about them. And she says, oh, they always have, hookers always have great shoes and then this and then that. And, she's just, and Anne Roth she's still designing. She's still doing films and she's 90, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, if you look at her credits, you look and you go, oh my God, she did that. You can't believe she's still doing magnificent work. So, but yes, that character she does have that thing. The difference is, well, of course, it's a different kind of film, but with the Liz character, you have some insight into the fact that she wants to, she's sort of a business entrepreneur, she's investing in the stock market and she's collecting art and, a little funny, there's something a little funny about her. Whereas with, the character include, you're going to her therapist's office and you're getting into the mind of like, what's going on there, which, I think was very helpful because I loved her work at that time. And I really loved that movie. And, to get into the head of why does a woman do that? Why does a woman make that choice? And, that I certainly read, some, didn't have the internet then. You had to actually pick up books and look at them.
Oh, I remember. I remember high school. I remember high school. We had a thing called typewriters.
Yes.
My parents still have an 8-track player.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Do you know that this script was written on a yellow legal pad? Brian used to write it out.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah. And he'd flip the pages, he'd read it to me in the morning, he'd get up in the middle of the night and write. And oh yeah, I think about that. I'm sure he's on computer. I'm sure he's been on computer for, many, many years, but he wasn't even on the typewriter with this. So anyway, I digress here.
Well, Talk about getting into the role of Liz Blake, like from script to screen. What were some of the things that you brought into the character uh, that maybe you didn't see in the script, but something that you just kind of brought in yourself, like improvised with it?
Okay, so, you know, Brian started writing this shortly after we got married, and I was actually working on. Well, he'd already started before we got married, but I was working on 1941 at the time, and he would read me. I was on location in Los Angeles. He was back in New York, and he'd read me the latest installment. Oh my God, this is so good. I love this. This is great. And finally, when he finished it, he said, "Well, I'm glad you like it because I wrote this for you, the role for me," and which was stunning because I had no idea, and thrilled about it, and thrilled it was going to be my first starring role, you know. And then the panic set in, absolute terror. I thought, I don't know how to do this. I mean, it's like I couldn't breathe. I don't know how to do this, and I couldn't start working on it. I'd look at the script, I'd look over at it, I'd think, no, I'm not going to do anything today. And what I started doing was it's like I wanted to get away from it. I couldn't get far enough away, so I'd leave the house and I'd go for long walks. And it was, you know, in the walks that I started just kind of thinking about it, and just thinking about it, just thinking about the scenes. And the first thing, I remember waking up one morning and thinking, I just got a vision of her hair. Sort of, now this is sort of a white, this I saw this sort of golden, like kind of like a strawberry blonde, kind of got the visual. That's the first thing that came to me. And I went to, who was the guy in New York that you go to, there was like the guy at that time. And he did it, and I thought, oh, that's it. Now I'm starting to see her a little bit. And, you know, and then as we talked about the script, Brian and I, one of the things, and I can't remember, it's like we dialogue about it, and I can't remember, was it my idea? Was it his idea? I know it was, I like a character to have a goal, to have something that they're, because I think as humans, it's nice for us to have something that, some hope that we have, something we want to do, something that we want to grow into. And I think I discussed that with him. And maybe that's why the art thing or the stock market thing, I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg there with us, but I know that was something that I like to have, and we incorporated into the script. And then I'm thinking a little bit, I guess just, you know, maybe that's it, to have her, even when I think about the character, when she looks at the painting and she's, you know, it's worth this, and, you know, and it could be worth, well, he could die. It could be, you know, $1 million. And just that kind of idea that she's thinking about it makes me feel more comfortable than her just being with men. But I'll tell you what I had to adjust to and adapt to. I had to come to an understanding that since I'm not a sex worker and have never been a sex worker, wasn't going to start experimenting at that point, that this was a woman who had, as they say today, sexual agency over her body. She was comfortable with it. She felt in charge, you know, and that this is a woman who's a lot more comfortable with her body, with her sexuality than I was at that point in my life. So in a way, she was my teacher, if that makes sense. Okay. You know what I mean? It's like I learn. It's like sometimes you learn more about yourself, more about your life from a character through the exploration. So I think that mostly Brian knew me so well. I think he, you know, we'd already been together for almost 3 years at this point. So he knew me really well when he develop this script. So I think a lot of it was already built into knowing the things that are important to me in terms of characters. So, then, there's stuff that maybe in a take or something that you surprise yourself with. And I couldn't necessarily put my finger on it right now, but I guess that's about that.
It was an interesting shot in that scene too, where you're talking to Keith Gordon about the painting, and Brian has framed you in a full body shot addressing the because you're sideways, you get a thing of wine in your hand, and you full body shot, and you're addressing the painting. I thought that was an interesting shot.
Oh, okay. I never thought about it that way, but you're seeing it differently than perhaps I would.
Yeah, it was just an interesting framing shot. Yeah. I thought
it uses the art, because then there's Angie in front of the painting in the museum, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's interesting.
I love it when you're dealing with the thugs and the subway too. Like, am I bothering you?
Yeah, no, you're not bothering me. But what's funny about that is that we had to rehearse. We had a rehearse, and I remember them coming to Brian's office, and they were so sweet. Mm-hmm. We kept saying, "Come on, get tougher, get meaner, get." Otherwise, there's nothing for me to be afraid of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a overnight. We shot all that stuff in the subway. It was almost like all night. That was a rough shoot. All night shooting, really hard.
You had to run in high heels.
Yes, I did. Good thing I don't have to do that today.
I interviewed Deborah Shelton, who worked in Body Double for De Palma, and she talked about having to run in high heels, and she was able to do it.
No, the running was not as bad as running down the stairs after I discovered the body. Remember when I run down the stairs with the razor in my hand? That was awful. I see that from time to time. I look and I go, how did I do that without falling?
Well, I'm under the impression you kept yourself in good shape, because in Carrie, here's one thing I noticed. You had to have been athletic, because when the class is punished and you guys have to do the exercise, you're folding yourself in half like an accordion doing setups. You're not even bending the knees. I'm like, I couldn't do that. You obviously were in good shape.
I had been a dancer from the time I was a little girl. So I was very flexible. And that's a funny thing you mentioned that, because Brian kept saying, you look too good. Can you try to make it look like you're struggling? So I tried by the time we got to the push-ups, which I couldn't do anyway, but I was lucky.
Oh my God. Well, you were faring better than PJ Souls. She kept screwing up.
Yeah, she did. She's
such
a character.
Yeah, but no, I see that, and I'm like, how is she folding? You're just folding yourself in half there. Your legs completely straight, no bending of the knees. I'm like, Nancy is in good shape. So I'm not surprised that you could go down the stairs in high heels or leap over subway barriers. I'm like, yeah. Yeah, but in Dress to Kill, there's so many scenes in this movie that were great. I loved how music played a major part in telling the dialogue. Pino Donaggio, of course, I actually got an autograph picture of him somewhere here. Of course, he did Carrie, did Dress to Kill, The Howling, and he did some great music. But boy, how Brian used his music in Dress to Kill. Look at the museum sequence. Totally no dialogue.
It's amazing. He's a great, great composer, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I love his work.
And he
was someone, I think it was Jay Cox. Mm-hmm. I think you probably know who Jay Cox is. Jay Cox had recommended Brian take a look at Don't Look Now when he was looking for a composer for Carrie. And, that was definitely great insight on Jay's part, knowing, you know, what would be right for that. And Pino did some wonderful work. He also did Blow Out.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to think what else of Brian's films. Maybe there's maybe another film, but I think those are, the music for Dress to Kill is magnificent. I just think it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, because the museum scene stands out, especially musically, but the cinematography
Oh,
out of this world, you
oh,
know.
it's just beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I remember shortly after first seeing Dress to Kill, I actually went to our local art gallery just to hang out there and kind of experience that, you know.
Yeah.
But even the end, the conclude the shower scene. You got shower scenes at the opening, you get shower scene towards the end, told beautifully by music, and of course the movie. Not just the music, the movie looks
Mm-hmm.
great, you know, especially this new Criterion edition. You know, it just looks great. The colors and the lighting, and yeah, Brian uses a lot of music
That
to
music,
convey.
that music cue in the
Mm-hmm.
shower, my shower sequence, that's one of my favorite music cues. And but in the movie, but I also in the insane asylum where you have Dr. Elliot who's there. That is the eeriest. It's just, talk about a brilliant music cue. I mean, it's just totally make sure the hair on your body stand on end.
Oh
You know what I
yeah, yeah. Excuse me, but I
mean?
love
That's,
how the yeah, that asylum scene, the camera just keeps going up and you see all these patients around there like they're watching a show, you
yes.
know. um it was brilliant, and yeah, the music was great, but I loved how the music, if you just listen to the change and shift the music in your sequence in the shower scene, and how the music changes, doesn't change in tone, but like when you're getting out of the shower, I noticed the cues change, you know,
Oh
like
yeah.
yeah, I love that, you know. And suddenly the music's not quite subtle anymore. It's like
No.
it gets a little more, I got to do something because I can see a pair of shoes out there, you know.
Oh yes.
Yeah, yeah. And of course it opens with a shower scene with Angie Dickinson. I'm going to tell you, I thought about this recently and I found this so bizarre. I guys heard this on Sirius Satellite on some station, but they were talking about sexual fantasies. And I thought of the opening of Dress to Kill when I heard this. And I couldn't believe this, but I actually know a woman. She's now happily married, you know, but she actually had a rape fantasy. And I heard, now no woman wants to be raped, but it's just a control thing, you know. And I heard on the Sirius satellite station that was the number one fantasy for women.
Well, there's a
And
book. There's a book, and Nancy Friday wrote it. It's something that I read when I was preparing. Brian gave it to me. That's where, you know, when I tell the sexual fantasy about in the office. Oh, I had a dream. It was dirty, really dirty. You know,
oh
that's
yes.
and it was a compilation of different things from different stories. And I'm reading, and almost every individual story, which was taken from a woman, was all about being overpowered and overtaken by someone. And I think it comes from the fact that women were shamed and not allowed. It goes way, way, way back, not allowed to feel pleasure. They were, you know, it's just really puritanical, and but it still carries over into our culture today. Maybe not as much. I don't know about the young girls, but I think that that's where it comes from. And you're 100%, 100% right about that. It is the most common fantasy. It's like, oh, you know, he just took me and I couldn't do anything about it, you
But
know.
look at Angie Dickinson in the opening of that movie. It opens again, beautiful music cue by Pino, and I loved it when it just cuts from the black to entering in that, so beautifully shot. And you get Angie Dickinson in the shower, and she's watching her husband, you know, shaving or whatever. And then when it gets to the point when you're not prepared, a hand goes over her mouth. And of course, in the uncut version, a lot more graphic, where he picks her
Yes.
up and she's struggling, She manages to, excuse me, move the hand and she screams. And that cuts to her having lousy sex with her husband
Yes.
in bed. And I thought about this when I heard that uh, on Sirius Satellite. I was like, wow, because Angie Dickinson's character in the movie had that fantasy,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah. And of course, in reality, no woman wants that.
Of
You
course
know,
not.
people got to read between the lines.
Exactly.
It's just like I hear a lot of funny things. Like I had a guy on here that used to work. He wasn't a sex worker, but used to protect the women. He told a story of one of those sex workers said that this guy wanted to be beaten with raw chicken. And the woman obliged him. And I was like, I said
Wow.
to the guy, I said, I never heard that one before.
That's one on me. That's the craziest thing I ever heard.
Oh, but when he told that story, I'm like, this is new. I thought I heard everything, you know, but it even goes with this with men though. Could you hear about men that like to be dominated by women, whether they're being whipped or whatever?
Mhm.
One of the strangest ones I heard is guys that have women put them in diapers. You know, I think that one's funny.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't
Um,
know.
but I've heard a lot of this on that Sirius Satellite radio. So, but I thought of the Angie Dickinson opening scene when I heard that, and I was like, okay. And of course, it's funny because, again, another reference to Psycho, because Angie Dickinson is the Janet Leigh of this movie.
Yes.
And she goes, and you kind of join midway in this pivotal scene, only instead of a shower, it's an elevator. And
Yes.
again, beautifully done. Music again. Do you take elevators anymore?
Well, yeah, it did spoil it a little bit. It does make you think. Well, but for me, it's for a different reason. I'm claustrophobic, so I
Are
can't wait.
you?
I just, as long as it gets to the floor I'm going to, I'm happy. I don't really think much about being killed in one as much as I think about getting trapped in one.
Oh, wow, you're claustrophobic.
Yeah.
You're like one of the toughest women I think of. You know, when people talk about tough women in movies, a lot of people say Sigourney Weaver, Jamie Lee Curtis, Linda Hamilton. I think Nancy Allen.
Well,
But
now you know my secret.
I know your secret. I know your kryptonite. But nonetheless, you have that was a great scene. And of course, I love the whole psycho effect of, you know, the swipes and the swipes. Of course, the uncut version, you see a lot of the damage. Um,
Yes.
Talk about that brief time working with Angie Dickinson in that movie and doing that scene.
It was so brief because, and that shows you how brilliantly it's cut together. We were really, because of the constraints of that set,
Mm-hmm.
we were really only in that one shot together. Everything else was shot separately. So we were there together, but for me to see her, it was certainly helped my character to see her in the condition she was in, even though it doesn't matter that, it's movie magic, it's not real blood, but it looks to the viewer real. Well, it looked to my eye very real. It was very disturbing, quite honestly, very, very disturbing. So, I would say Angie and, well, of course, it wasn't Michael, but it was Susanna Clem, had the lion's share of the work to get done in that scene. That was a tough, tough scene to shoot. So I got off pretty easy with just our hands going to reach one another and looking up at the mirror and, all of that. So I feel I got off lucky.
I love that shot too, of the gleam on the the straight razor and the
Yeah.
shot of your eyes, and
Yeah.
there's some great shots, like where you put your hand up to your face and the way De Palma framed that. Um,
Yes.
yeah, he did such a great job. I don't understand the Razzie Awards that year. They nominated this film,
I
and I'm
know.
like, I'm like, I totally. They nominated The Shining as well. I don't know that neither film won, but I don't get that, because I think this film is a total A grade for me. It's a
Thank
great
you.
movie. Yes. Um, so I never understood that. I thought your work in it was fantastic. I thought De Palma's work in it was fantastic.
I think it's one of his best. I really do.
I do too. It's my favorite of his films.
Is that? Oh my God, I'm
Yes.
so flattered. It's one of your favorites.
Well, I like De Palma best when he does horror films. I was not a fan of Mission Impossible. In fact, I think Mission Impossible movies got better because
I
I
mean,
think,
I think he did a great job with it, but it's the least like him, really, of,
yeah, well, it was
his
better than
films.
Mission Impossible 2, but I think 3 onward, I think they got better.
Did they? I think I bailed. I think I stopped seeing them.
Yeah, well, I thought 3 through, what is it, 6 or 7 now, they just kept getting better.
Oh, well, I'll have to go revisit those and take a look
Yeah,
at them sometime.
especially, yeah, when they brought in Rebecca Ferguson, and it was not so much Tom Cruise. It was more of a team player thing. You get Simon Pegg in there.
Oh,
Um,
that's good.
yeah, so I actually thought they were getting better. And I
Mhm.
wasn't a big fan of Mission to Mars, which is De Palma
Yeah.
as well. But
No, I didn't care for that at all.
yeah, but Dress to Kill is my favorite. But like, I mean, I like Scarface, but I don't own Scarface.
Yeah.
But I have Dress to Kill. I've got Body Double. I've got Phantom of the Paradise. I want to order Sisters. I don't know if it's on Blu-ray yet or not.
I
But
don't either. I know it was just on Turner. They just had it on Turner Classic Movies. They showed Sisters, Obsession, Dress to Kill, I think, or Blowout. Maybe it was Blow. I don't remember. They did some of Brian's movies, but not all of them. And I'm trying to think of. There were some, and I thought, oh, why? It just seemed like something was missing, but I don't remember now what it was. It was a few weeks ago.
yeah, I had somebody on from Obsession earlier this year too.
Oh.
And she just she said she and her husband were watching Shaun the Sheep while they recovered from the vaccines. um I'm
Oh.
trying to think, I'm forgetting her first name. Her last name was Debris. But I can't think right off the
I
top
might
of my
not
head.
know because I'm not as familiar, with that film.
Yeah, but she was lovely to talk to, and she had a book she was promoting, and we talked. She said she didn't have a lot of memories of Obsession because she wasn't on set very long, but I thought the Shaun the Sheep, a COVID thing, was kind of funny.
It is funny. And of course, who's magnificent in that film is Geneviève Bujold.
Yeah.
Oh, what was I watching her in the other day? Anne of a Thousand Days. What an actress.
Mm-hmm.
When that woman was on screen, she just took your breath away. You couldn't look at anything else when she was on
Kind of
screen.
like my thoughts of you in Dress to Kill.
Oh, you're just killing me.
You took our breath away. Yeah. Yep. But yeah, you did the elevator scene with Angie Dickinson and of course Michael Caine. Do you think
Oh.
Michael Caine was upset that Playboy did not have him do a centerfold after this?
Oh my God. He might have been. He's so sweet and sensitive. Oh my God. What an actor. I just have to tell you, one of the greatest experiences working with him. What a fabulous human being he is. Really, really fabulous.
And still
Funny
going.
and still going and still doing wonderful work. He's such a professional, just a guy. He shows up, he's there to work, he's on time, he knows what he's doing, he's ready to go, he's very supportive. What a sense of humor. You could die laughing. He was just so funny on the set. And it's an English thing because I also, worked with Roger Moore and Malcolm McDowell. And Roger Moore, people would never believe this. He was one of the funniest people I ever met in my life. He would have us hilariously cracking up on the set right before the director would go action. And I think, and then when he and Malcolm got together, it was totally crazy. So
I have heard so many good things about Roger Moore. I had interviewed Julie Don Cole, who was Bruce Assault and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Okay.
And she's worked with Roger Moore in a film. And she said that when the cameras weren't rolling, she said that Roger Moore was sitting eating grapes and he shared them with her. But she said he was one of these people that went around and met everybody on the set.
You know? Yeah. Oh yes, he did not separate himself out. And he, you know, when I got to location, we shot up in Vancouver, which is, I just love it there. It's so beautiful. I first got there, I thought, I'm moving here. I love this place. It was so pretty. And but that was the first time I went up there, was to work with him. And he was so welcoming and so kind to me, and so, you know, constantly say, oh, you're wonderful and you're this and you're that. And just, you know, and he was married to, I forget his wife's name at the time because they subsequently divorced, but she was very protective of him. And, oh, Roger, you can't be getting your own food. Oh, no, I'm fine. And he'd go with his tray and along with everybody else so I actually can say that I loved every single minute of every single day working with him. I really did.
Just a question here, though. Do you think Michael Caine did that role because he didn't want you to have the best legs in the movie?
That's hilarious. Yeah, I'm telling you, I was thinking about, I think Ann Roth had to have those shoes made for him, those heels, because they just didn't exist.
Yeah. Oh man, Michael Caine.
He showed up the day he was going to be dressed up. The only time he was going to be dressed up on the set for that sequence, and you could feel the tension. It's a very, you know, macho environment. It was a New York crew, very, very macho environment. And Brian said to me, he says, you know, he says, why don't you go in and just go to Michael's trailer, knock on the door. Why don't you go just see him? And because I don't want him coming out here, and I don't want you laughing at him. And, you know, I thought that's what I did. And I walked in and he was sitting there all dressed up. And he was sitting on a high director chair, and he had a cigar in his mouth. And I said, I remember looking at him, and he just looked at me. I said, oh, I see you're all ready. I just wanted to come in and just say a quick hello. So cut to him walking onto the set, and all the guys, everyone's standing there, you know, like this, and nobody wants to look up, all the men, and these are all men on the set in those days. And he says, well, I always knew if I worked long enough and hard enough, I'd get to play me mom. With that, everybody got hysterical. He knew exactly what to do to diffuse the environment. And that was it. It was over. And then we could shoot the film. It's a brilliant, brilliant man. And the other thing, I always like telling this because he's a very generous man. The sequence that we talked about a little earlier about me telling the dream that I had to him, and I'm kind of walking around the office, right, telling this dream. It was a tiny little space, and there was all the crew and the lights, and the way the camera was positioned, they couldn't have the desk there. They couldn't have him sitting at the desk, and I'm just talking, and really all he does is, I think he says or whatever he says, not much. And Brian said to him, you know, Michael, we're shooting Nancy now. Why don't you go relax? Because this could take a little while. I don't want you getting, you can come back when we're ready to turn around. He says, no, I'll stay. He says, because she'll feel my presence. It'll help her. She'll feel my presence in the room. And he sat there on an apple box while I shot that sequence, which was a long sequence. And Brian did a lot of takes. And I never forgot that.
Wow.
And the actors would just say, oh, you know, okay, thanks. All right, I'll see you later, you know. And I would never have asked, you know, but as an actor, not a star, as an actor, he knew that it would be of benefit to my performance if he was in the room with me. So amazing man.
Yeah. You, of course, that's a very revealing scene for you. And of course, in the opening scene, the shower scene in Carrie, How did you ever get nervous doing nude scenes, or like, how do you prepare for that? Because even in Carrie, you were one of the few that went topless. I mean,
Yes.
Amy Irving still had a bra on, you know?
She was supposed to be, but she chickened out at the last minute. But,
Yeah.
yes, that day, Carrie, we were all very nervous. It was all very scary. But, Brian said, first of all, it was a minimal crew. He was on the set, the
Mm-hmm.
cameraman, the focus puller, and maybe one other person. But, they'd blow the smoke in. And he said, you'll see an arm here, a leg there. Well, you did
Well,
not see an arm. It was like we go to the dailies like head to toe. And I went, oh my goodness. I wasn't expecting it. And at least I thought, well, it looks pretty nice, and
oh, the music was great.
music's beautiful. And Paul Hirsch, who's the editor, always
Mm-hmm.
says, I learned a really important lesson on that movie, to know where my credit is going and the way I cut the film. His credit is over me running across. He says, everyone had said to him, how come you don't have a credit in the movie? Which of course, he did. So anyway, so that's that one. And then on Dress to Kill, honestly, the shower sequence, everyone is very respectful and very, they have a minimal amount of crew, but everyone is really, when you're naked, people are really kind and sensitive to it. However, I think it's worse when you're walking around in black lingerie, strutting around, that you can see the men. They're like, oh, they're looking at you sideways and everything. And I felt a little bit uncomfortable with that. But in the shower sequence at the end, everybody was very respectful. And at some point when we're setting up for it and all of that, Brian, right before we started shooting, they're lighting, he came over, he says, remember, we're only married a year. We celebrated our year anniversary. He says, what are you doing? And my wife running around naked in front of all these people. What was I thinking? He was really upset. So I was calming him down and saying, it's okay, I'm fine, Anyway.
Yeah. By the way, in Carrie, who did you snap with the towel?
Well, it snapped out. I think it was towards Amy because I'm running towards her, but nobody actually got her. But thinking about what she did about getting that bra on at the last minute, I probably would have liked to have snapped the towel out of her.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But nonetheless, yeah, Dress to Kill, wonderful movie. We do have to address, of course, Keith Gordon, who, of course, went on to do Christine and Back to School. Keith Gordon, he's quite out there in the 80s. I know he's a director now.
He's an
And
incredibly talented director.
yeah, and of course he was in Jaws 2. He he was in home movies with you as well.
That's where we first worked with him. Yeah.
Yeah, talk about working with Keith Gordon. I really liked his character in this. You see that brief scene towards the beginning of he and Angie Dickinson, who plays his mom, and he's working on all these weird little gadgets and whatnot. And he's got a point. If he only went with her, maybe something would have diverted. But nonetheless, I like the fact that he's a smart kid, especially when he's setting that camera outside that clinic, and again, there's so much about this movie. I could just go on and on about stuff I love about this movie. Talk about working with Keith Gordon.
Okay. We met Keith. He came in to read for home movies. We had actually Tom Hulse read for that part, and somebody else, a few other people. And I think it was Scott Rudin was a casting director at the time at the Public Theater, and Jack Tempchin, who was one of the producers, he asked for his help, and he found Keith, and he came in to read, and it was like, for home movies, it was like, oh my God, this is the guy, this is him. And of course, he was playing Brian. He didn't know he was playing Brian because that was really autobiographical. Home movies is, right? And and I remember him saying, he'd say to me sometimes, well, no one would ever do this. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, I know somebody who did, because Brian did run around collecting divorce evidence for the parents. So anyway, so that was Keith. On that movie, you could tell he was really smart. I mean, he was, I think 17, 16 when we did home movies, and he was just the intellect. He had a very, very high intellect. And so when we started thinking about or getting into casting on Dressed to Kill, and I'm trying to remind myself, who was in Drugstore Cowboy? What's his name? Matt Dillon?
Matt Dillon, yep.
Is it Matt Dillon? Okay.
Yep.
So he read for Dressed to Kill for that character because George Leto had just worked with him on, I think, Over the Edge. And he says, oh, this actor, he's really good. He's so talented. And he came in and he read it. He was adorable. What's not adorable about him? And a couple of other people, and it just didn't feel, certainly not to Brian, just didn't feel like this is the guy. And I remember him one day saying, what about Keith? And I went, oh my God, yes, Keith. Of course it has to be Keith. And he came in and read and nailed it. And I loved working with him. I felt, great collaboration. He's, like I said, he's a very smart actor. And he probably drove Brian a little bit crazy because he would have questions. He wasn't just someone who would just show up and like, okay, what do you need me to do? It's like, well, this and this and this, and why are you shooting it that way? I mean, he was a smart guy, and I think he did a great job with that role. And I love the scene with Keith and Angie. I think that's a really good scene. And I just personally loved working with him. And I got to see him a few years ago, maybe it's 5 or 6 years ago now. We were we interviewed, I think, believe it or not, the movie was first being released on DVD or Blu-ray in Australia at the time. So we did an interview, something like a podcast. I think it was filmed and photographed or however it was. And we got to hang out a little bit and talk. And I was so happy to see, I mean, he did A Midnight Clear, which I think is a wonderful film, and a few other films that he did, but I happen to like that film a lot. But he's a special guy. I mean, I have to tell you, it was the 40th last year, as you know, and I was putting together, I had done a 40th anniversary screening as a fundraiser for WeSPARK of Carrie, and everybody came, and it was wonderful. And Brian Fuller, I don't know if you know who Brian Fuller is, but he's a producer, writer-producer. He created Pushing Daisies, Hannibal. He was involved with American Gods. He actually did a television version of Carrie in 2002, which is quite good. Anyway, Brian was the, what do you call it? He was the moderator for the interview on Carrie. But how I met Brian, here's how I met Brian. On Twitter, I think it was. He connected me or hashtagged me or whatever you call it. He is obsessed with Dressed to Kill, and he and all of his friends dressed up as Liz and Kate and Bobby for Halloween. And I have your email. I will send you the picture. You will not believe your eyes. I looked at it and went, oh my God, they look incredible. So that's how we met. So when I called, I said, look, Brian, I want to do this same thing for Dressed to Kill because it's the 40th. I want to do it as a fundraiser. And when he says, I am so in, and everybody's going to be in. And then, what happened, it sort of came and went. And I was hoping to get Angie to come and do the Q&A. And Keith said, of course, if I'm available. And, unfortunately, Jerry Greenberg is gone, so he wouldn't be able to. But anyway, I would have tried to twist Brian's arm, and get, not Brian, Brandon Maggard to come and do it. So anyway, so why did I go on that tangent? I have no idea. I forgot what I was talking about.
Well, I gotta say, one funny scene that I remember is you and Keith Gordon in the restaurant, and you're describing how, that poor woman in the background reacting.
And that's Mary Davenport, and she plays his mother in home movies.
Okay.
And her daughter is Jennifer Salt. She was married to Waldo. She was married to Mary. Mary was married to Waldo Salt. Of course,
Yeah, Jennifer was in Sisters and Midnight Cowboy.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. And we shot that sequence. It was picked for a specific reason. You can't see anything because it's like you don't see anything outside the windows, but it was shot in the top of the World Trade Center at the time so that you could see the Empire State Building in the background. But because we got up there, it was all socked in. It was fog. You didn't see it. But I like to let people know because, of course, it's not there anymore. And, you know, it was really, they didn't at that time let a lot of people shoot up there. So we were really lucky to get in there to do that day. But it's a funny sequence. People love that sequence. They just love it.
I'd like to see Sean Clark do a Horrors Holograms location shoot on Dress to Kill, because I bet you there's a lot of great, like I don't know how much of it was staged, like on a sound stage, but I'm assuming like the museum was real, you know, and
yes, it was Philadelphia. It was the Philadelphia Art Museum.
Yeah, beautiful. And
the exterior, of course, is the Metropolitan Museum in New York.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And any other locations in that are still around today?
Well, you know, Liz's place was a loft in Soho. I'm sure that's probably remodeled and sold, that building. The subway still exists, that's for sure. It's still probably crumbling. I'm trying to think, where else did we shoot that? Well, you know, I don't know, the building downtown where, well, actually the hallway was not, the hallway was not a practical location. It was the stage. We shot, I think the stairway sequence was in the building, and the elevator closing on the arm, that was actually in a building, in the exterior of that building where Ken Lockman lived. Trying to think of where else. Well, you know what? 70th Street between Park and Lexington. Mm-hmm. No, Lexington and 3rd, where Keith wires up where Elliot's office is, that brownstone. So that's still there. In fact, the irony of that, or the coincidence is that long before, when I was like 20 or 21 years old, I lived in an apartment just down the street from there. I used to walk up and back and forth on that block all the time. So the interior of Warren, isn't that his name, Warren Lockman, or Ken Lockman, whatever his name is, his apartment, when she gets up out of bed and walks out, that was the apartment directly above our bedroom at 1 Fifth Avenue, where we lived. So that's still there. But everything else was shot, it was soundstage, like the office, the interior of the office, and you know, what else? The elevator sequence, the hallway. What else did we do? I don't remember. I don't actually know where. I think I'm going to guess it was probably a soundstage where they shot the computer. That scene, I think, is probably on the soundstage. So.
Yeah, Lockman was the red herring, of course.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And of course, when you get in a cab, I almost forgot about this. Bill Randolph being the cab driver. He, of course, did Friday the 13th Part 2 the following year. I haven't had him on here yet. I got him on Facebook. So he's somebody I got to get on, because Friday the 13th Part 2 celebrates its 40th anniversary this year. And of course, he was involved, of course, in the shish kebab scene in that movie. And but
he's a nice guy.
Yeah, I remember he gave you a little bit of a hand there.
Yes, he did.
Do you think he ever got his date?
I don't think so.
And of course, Dennis Franz. People talk about NYPD Blue, but to me, I always think Dress to Kill. I really liked him in this movie, and I think I heard this role was what led to NYPD Blue.
Well, it probably did, because he had not done anything, I think, for television at that point. Brian used him originally. He was in The Fury. He had a part in that, and then brought him to New York for this particular role. And of course, he did another role in Blowout. But he was very good in this. And I think,
Yeah.
I'm sure, listen, knowing how things go, I'm sure he had to read, but I'm sure somebody looked at that and said, you know, this guy would probably be very good for this. So
Oh,
I
he
think
was
it
great.
put him on their radar. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love the back and forth with between you two and the state. Like I even like the little things, you know, where he puts the thing down or he's showing the pictures or whatever. And I like how you just kind of take this paper or something, just kind of go like this, like, you know, I don't need to see this, you know, little things like that. Was stuff like that improvised on your end?
I was just going to say, those are things that kind of happen in the moment when, you know,
Yeah.
it's like, get this out of my face. You know what I mean? I'm not
Yeah.
interested in this. I've seen this before.
Yeah, I love the exchanges between you two in this movie. And of course, Brian De Palma, you worked with um, 3 times before. And talk about working with him as a director.
Well, you know, I first worked with him in Carrie,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I like Brian, and I like him because, you know, he gives the actor time. He always created a rehearsal period, which a lot of directors don't do. I think he respects that process and knows that you can discover things and find things in a rehearsal that you wouldn't necessarily, unless if you just showed up on the set, you know. He is probably on the surface to most people, probably crews don't like him that much because he's not really friendly on the set and he doesn't really like being on the set. But as an actress working with him, I liked working with him because he seemed interested. And I always liked that he would say, the actors can tell me more than I know about the character. So he's always looking for input. And I think he has respect for the work that they do. So I enjoyed it, and we had a great rehearsal period on Dress to Kill, but we had a really unusual rehearsal on Blowout. And what we did was, because that was shot in Philadelphia, so they had everybody come down that was not from, because we had a lot of Philadelphia actors, but come down, and there was a week for costume fittings and rehearsal and this and that, and he rehearsed the scenes individually, but one day, because he wanted it, this big office, he wanted to see the whole piece like a play. So we'd all be sitting outside, and as the scenes would go one by one, we'd go through the office and back out again and so he got to see without stop the entire film unfold in front of him. So he saw it like a play. And I thought that was pretty interesting. It's interesting, you don't usually you shoot everything out of sequence. It's like sometimes you're shooting the last scene, then you're shooting the middle scene, then you're shooting the first scene on the last day, or you know what I mean? So it was fun in a way to have that, a real luxury for him and for us to see what does that feel like if you act it from beginning to end.
Yes. Well, you know, I loved the work he did in this film. And of course, Carrie. But one last thing on Dress to Kill. Do you remember much about the controversy surrounding it?
You mean when it opened?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was all about the misogyny and this and
Yeah.
that. And also, oh no, there was also, yes, here, I know what you're talking about, I think, that they have to show it to the MPAA and they were going to give it an X rating because of the shower scene. And he was really upset that he had, much like what happened, by the way, on my other fabulous movie here, RoboCop. So because they felt it was too violent and too explicit and blah, blah, blah. And he was really upset that he had to trim it down and take some of the shots out. But, you know, I always felt, and I said to him, I said, you know, here's the thing, is that by the time when this character is backed into this corner, we know she's just so guilty about and feeling such shame about what she's done. We're already can see where she is. She's so vulnerable at this point. The minute you see her being backed into the corner, just what your imagination will do with this is horrible. It's like, you don't need to see all of that. to really have the emotional impact on an audience. That was my opinion about it. But, you know, still a filmmaker, it's their vision, it's their thing, it's the way they want to show it. So it really bothered him, but he trimmed it down. I mean, it's still excessively violent. There's a lot
Yeah.
of blood in that film, even having trimmed it. So, you know, that's the one I remember. I'm trying to think, I don't remember that there was anything else.
Well, I remember that year, you know, Cruising was controversial, and so
Yes.
was Maniac was controversial, and they all went through that, you know. But I thought it was also interesting too that I never saw, of course, the other person that was trailing your character as well. I
Oh
forget.
yeah, or the cop.
Yeah, Clemens there. Yeah,
Yes,
that
yes.
that was funny. Yeah, I really love Carrie as well, you know, and I've interviewed Terry Bolo from this movie already.
Oh, she's a doll.
Mm-hmm.
I just
And
saw her last year before COVID, in fact.
oh
In
yeah,
fact, she came, I invited her and Doug Cox when I did the Carrie screening to do the Q&A with us. She's a
yeah,
nice gal.
yeah. I remember, and she and I talked about this too. I forget her name. One of the girls that was punished with you, the one with the really short brunette hair. I'm
Are you
trying to think.
talking about either Deirdre Berthrong or,
Deidre.
yes, she's little short Bob,
Yeah.
not Edie McClurg with the glasses.
Not Edie McClurg. No.
Deirdre, yes.
Yeah. Is she still around?
I have no idea.
Neither did
I
she.
never saw her or heard about her after that.
I just remember she always stood out.
Yeah, she was adorable.
Yeah. Yeah. Edie McClurg, of course, went on to Back to School, Ferris Bueller. Uh,
Oh,
she
so funny.
telling off Steve Martin and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, she was really funny. And of course, she was in this. And talk about playing Chris Hardingen in this film. Of course, we all know you can accordion yourself, you know. um, yeah, I gotta tell you, like even do the jumping jacks, you're just oh, you know. Yeah, you were probably in the best shape of all of them out there.
And that's not what Brian wanted, because he thought he assumed that she'd be the laziest of all the girls, you know.
Oh
And I
man.
couldn't. It's like I didn't know how to. Some in my body just, it's like sense memory, you know, my muscle memory, whatever. If I'm exercising, that's just the way I go. It just still to this day, I think.
Well, I gotta say, Carrie to me had one of the greatest nude scenes ever. And I'll tell you why. The opening scene, when De Palma shoots it, you got all the steam and whatnot, and you got yourself and PJ Souls and Amy Irving, and we're seeing these beautiful women. Then it pans off to an isolated Sissy Spacek as Carrie. And the reason I say this is a great nude scene is because of what's being said. The girls, you know, hitting each other with the towels and stuff, very sexual. Whereas Sissy, it's not about sexuality, it's about growth. She's about to discover her period, which of course her
Yes.
mom
Yes.
didn't tell her about because of her religious upbringing. And a lot of people, they'll say nudity is not necessary or gratuitous, you know, and to some degree, yeah, they can be right on that. I think it worked beautifully in Carrie just because of what's being said in that opening scene with Sissy.
I agree with you. I think it was done beautifully, and it was done well, and it showed you, you know, Sissy, like you said, isolated, vulnerable, and shy with her body and not even knowing how her body works. And then the other girls that are like, yeah, woohoo, really, really out there and comfortable with one another. And it just that contrast is very stark. And I think it worked well. And again, I didn't really feel, even though it's me there head to toe, I didn't really feel exploited. I know there's there's like an element, but it was the 70s and there was nudity in everything. It's like from the 60s through the 70s, like it was a no-brainer. Okay, there's going to be nudity in every movie. It's just the way it was. But in this scene, I mean, they are in a locker room, they are showering. Ultimately we're working towards her being alone, her getting her period. Now, where are you more vulnerable than alone? Oh, here we are, alone in a shower. Hello, alone in a shower, right? And then she reaches out for help. So yeah, I think it was done really well. And like I said, I thought it was if you're going to be naked, at least it looked pretty there,
Yeah, no, I thought that was great. Here's what I found so impressive about Sissy Spacek, is that she was 27 years old when she did this. And I heard that she went in dressed in her little sailor's outfit or whatever when she went in, and she just put her hair in front of her face and whatnot. And
she put Vaseline in her hair.
Yeah, I hear so you see the movies where you can tell these people aren't teenagers when you watch some of these teen movies. Sissy had me fooled.
Yeah.
I would never have known she was 27. Like even in Coal Miner's Daughter, she passed that test beautifully. Yeah.
She was quite a chameleon. She could really turn into whatever character she wanted. She's a magnificent actress, I think.
You guys remember throwing the tampons at her?
Oh, that was horrible. Just horrible. I mean, we made ourselves sick with that. It's something that you don't enjoy doing, and you really have to go to such a dark place to do something like that. And it took us a while to recover. I mean, it really was disturbing to do. It's not like we were laughing and going, oh, that was fun. It really wasn't fun at all.
Well, speaking of disturbing, what do you remember about the pig's blood scene? Whenever I heard she had to wear that for a long time, and I'm like, that would be so uncomfortable.
Well, uncomfortable. It was horrible. In fact, it was Caro syrup. And Brian had her husband, Jack, dump it on her.
Jack Fisk, yeah. Oh, wow.
And she had to, if you remember, she's standing like this. She's just like a statue while they're shooting all this stuff. And because of the Caro syrup, her arms stuck to her body. So they couldn't just rip her. So they had to put hot water and, get her unstuck from, like being glued together from it. It was pretty awful. I mean, there's a very long time that she had to be in, a wet, uncomfortable costume. You know what I mean? So, but she's a trooper, Sissy's a trooper.
Oh, that was a great, great scene, and of course, everybody remembers you get slapped a lot in this movie. And of course, the biggest slap comes from Betty Buckley. Did she really slap you? Or like I heard
my God, did she really slap me? Ryan kept saying, hit her harder, hit her harder. At first, we were trying to do like a stage slap, and then, wow. Anyway, yeah, my ear was bruised by the end of this, and her hand, and it was awful. And we did so many takes. I mean, a lot of takes, a lot of takes. And I remember Brian coming to my trailer, to my dressing room and saying, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm okay, but I'm wondering, why did we do so many takes? I mean, what was it you were looking for? And then he said, well, I was just trying to get a certain reaction. I said, well, couldn't you just told me,
You know what it reminded me of is in Friday the 13th, Betsy Palmer, of course, was did a lot of stage acting. And there's a scene where she and Adrian King get into a tussle, and she slaps Adrian a few times, and she really belted Adrian, and Adrian wasn't prepared for that. And Betsy, this was just how she, it wasn't intentional, it's just,
Yes.
so yeah. Of course, Betty Buckley went on, and she was in Split, and did some stuff with M. Night Shyamalan. I won't get into The Happening, but
No.
Split was great. But I was just waiting for her to unload that on James McAvoy and Split, Whack! What a gym teacher she was, huh?
Oh, I'll tell you. Oh my God, Betty, what a character.
Yeah, she was great. She was great in that role. And of course, I bet you John Travolta will never let you drive him in a car again.
Oh my God, I just love that guy.
I heard
So
so many great things about John Travolta, people that's worked with him. I've interviewed a lot of people that's worked in movies with him. And one of the things I've noticed in Autograph Collector magazine, they always had him usually up there, sometimes even at #1 as approachable celebrities. I've heard so many nice things about John Travolta as a person. And of course, he has to play this you call him what was it? You called him a dumb shit or something like
I
that.
was gonna say totally dumbass character. Yes.
Yeah, and he goes, "I told you not to call me that. Told you not to call me." I like it when the cop, he's drinking the beer and the cops are coming by.
I know.
He drops
He's
the
drinking and it's like coming out of his mouth. It's just so gross.
he drops out. He laughs at you. Look what you did. He laughs at you. Oh boy, I found that funny. Talk about working with John.
Well, he's just an incredible actor. And, I first met him. I didn't read with him, but I met him when we screen tested. I also tested, Michael Talbot tested for that role, and I read with him and rehearsed with him. And then when John walked in the door, she said, Brian said, "No, stay, you're reading with somebody else too." And I said, "Oh, okay." So John walked in, and I just looked at him. I thought, "Oh, well, he's getting the part. And I guess whoever he rehearsed with is going to get the part." So I thought I didn't have any chance at that point. But when we sat down to do the scenes together, it was right away we had chemistry, right away. And he's a generous actor. He's a solid actor. He's an actor who will surprise you. And I loved working with him. And I thought in Carrie and in Blow Out, we had phenomenal chemistry together. And I can't tell you enough. He's professional. He's fun and funny, and I love him, and I think that he really does surprise you with where he goes sometimes with the character, so that it kind of catches you off guard, and you have to go along with it. I like him. He's very sensitive. And I think that's part of what makes him so good at what he does.
Well, Billy Nolan, of course, was abusive to Chris, but Chris really was the one holding the reins here, because he got her to go. Of course, Michael Talbot, of course, cowards out. I can't do it. You do it. Right. and he goes and he, hits the pig with the mallet. One thing was brought up, it shows him swing, and it shows you going, yes, and keeps going back and forth. I never thought of this before, but it was brought up that was like, it was as if Chris was having an orgasm, like she was getting off on this nastiness and this sense of power she was having.
Yeah. Well, I haven't heard it. It makes sense. I haven't heard it in that context. I have heard it spoken in the context of when she pulls the rope, and that's like the ultimate.
Oh, okay. I never heard that.
But yeah, I can see why people would say that about that sequence in the when he's slaughtering the pig. I can see that.
I never heard it from the rope pull, but yeah, that makes sense too.
Yeah.
But I have heard about the pig section. Yeah. And of course, we got to talk about PJ Souls. Listen, when I was in school, if somebody wore a cap in school, their cap got pulled off their head by whatever teacher or principal saw you.
Right.
And they either gave it back to you or told you to come and get it at the office after school. Why PJ Souls was wearing a ball cap through this whole thing, I'll
I
never
know.
know.
I
But I
know.
think it's cute.
It's adorable. And it was a great touch. I think she wore it for the audition, and Brian said, wear the hat. It's cute. Keep it.
I like little pigtails too,
Yeah, yeah. No, she's adorable.
Did you
And
guys
she's
talk?
fun too. We're still in touch. And, of course, we've seen each other in the last few years at shows, at autograph shows and cons and things like that. And she also came for the 40th anniversary of Carrie. And I like her. I think she's a very talented actress. And, she went on to do Rock and Roll High School, of
I
course,
love
and
that movie.
Private Benjamin. And,
Halloween.
she's just great. That's right. Yep.
Yep.
I love her. That's all I can say.
I've never had her on here yet. She's somebody I want to get on here. But years ago, I wrote to her and I got 2 autograph pictures of her.
Oh.
One of a headshot and one of her and Bill Murray in Stripes, just before he tries a little cooking technique with her. With a spatula. But I heard that she's a hugger at cons.
Oh, she's a wonderful hugger, and she's adorable. You would love her. I know you would, and I know she'd enjoy you. She's a great interview. I think she's fun and funny, and she's smart, very smart. So yeah.
Yeah.
I can put in a good word for you. I will.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I haven't had her on here. I had Day Young on from Rock and Roll High School and Alan Arkish. Okay. So yeah. So I've heard so many great things about Day. Actually, when I had Day on, I ordered an autograph picture from her. And she sent one headshot, and she sent one of her and PJ at Rock and Roll High School. And I thought it was so cool. Because I don't sell my autographs. I keep everything. But I thought it was interesting. She said her managers said that I should send you this picture of me and PJ in this crowd scene at Rock and Roll High School, get PJ to sign it as well, because it would be worth more. And I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, I'm not one of those collectors that sells autographs, but I thought it was cool that they thought of me that way, that.
Very nice.
Yeah. But yeah, I've heard so many great things about PJ Souls, and she does strike me as kind of a funny person,
She's fabulous. I just, like I said, I reconnected her in the last 5 or 6 or 7 years, and it was great to reconnect with her.
Yeah. Now, before we talk about RoboCop, I want to talk a little bit about Wendy Jo Sperber, because you did 2 movies with her, and I'm going to tell you, when I think of Wendy Jo Sperber, I think of the first movie I ever seen her in. That was Moving Violations. Did you see her in this?
No.
I laughed my ass off. It's from the people who made Police Academy.
Okay.
And it's about a bunch of people who get their licenses taken away for various reasons. And she's one of these people that shows up, and James Keach plays this evil cop who's teaching, has to deal with them taking these driver's courses and whatnot. And John Murray, Bill Murray's brother, is the protagonist, but he's kind of antagonizing James Keach in this. Wendy Jo Sperber is one of the people in this. And she shows up and she's got aches and pains all over, And we just lost Fred Willard. And Fred Willard is one of the people in this course. And he plays a doctor. But they call him Doc because he's a great mechanic.
Oh, okay.
So he shows up there, he's got a pipe in his mouth and whatnot. And the guy's asking about cars. He's saying, yes, that's why they call me Doc. I'll get the best tools and blah, 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 blah. Wendy Jo, you could see her in the background, and she's like, she goes, excuse me, did you say you were a doctor? He goes, yep, the best to be. He says, well, I've been having these problems, and he thinks she's talking about her car. She's talking about physicality. And he starts asking her questions like, what about your rear end? She goes, what about it? Does it make noises? Talking about the car. And she goes, that's kind of personal, isn't it? He goes, I'll tell you what. Why don't you bring it in or come into my office at such and such a time? But in the meantime, he gives her some instructions. He said, fill up with oil, at least such and such a gallon of oil. And he says, use some Vaseline or some grease. Get up in your rear end, really squirm it around there. At the end of the conversation, she said, really? I've never been told this before. Well, the following morning, you got to see this. This is so funny. She gets up in the early morning and she's like, she got crystal oil. She's like, well, if it works. And she starts down in the crystal oil. And you can hear Fred Willard's voice. He goes, and she takes this Vaseline or something, and she goes, put it right on up there, smear it all around. She goes, okay. And, and then at the end of it, he goes, take it, go out in the highway, go, I don't know, 40 miles an hour or something like that. It shows her the highway around.
Running. Oh my God, that's crazy.
The voiceover goes, take it up the highway, blah, 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 full speed. See how it feels. And then you got hers going, like shit. And then later on, she goes in for an appointment. And of course, he's there with his, looks like a doctor's coat on. And she comes in there and he's not looking at her. The whole thing is he's not looking. He goes, okay, just bring it on over there. I think he's talking about her car. And she goes, she shows up there and she's naked, totally naked. She's like all nervous and whatnot. And goes, shouldn't I be wearing a gown or something? And he's not looking. He goes, no, we're not that formal here. And he goes, just go put it up on that thing, where you raise the car up in the air. He goes, go put it up over there and I'll be with you in a minute. And anyway, she goes over and he turns the switch, but he's not looking at her because he's preoccupied. You just see her go up on this thing and she's naked from behind, her legs hanging down. And he's on the phone with somebody. He goes, hey, so-and-so, go check out that rear end for me, please. The guy goes over and she's like up there going, oh, oh. And she goes, okay, what next? Fred Willard turns around. He throws the pen.
Oh my God.
You haven't seen this is my introduction to Wendy Jo Sperber.
Well, all right.
And I laughed so hard. It's not what I call a great movie, but her and Fred Willard in this were so great. And so she is so funny. And you, of course, worked with her in 1941.
But before that, I went
well, we're going to talk about that one too.
No, I'm just going to give you a heads up because I'm close to running out of time here.
Mm-hmm.
So just giving you a heads up. I don't have a lot more time left.
Okay. Well, you know what? Next year, I'll be happy to have you back.
Well, I'd be happy to come back and talk more, of course.
Yep. But 1940, like I heard great things about her from Tracy Smith and Bachelor Party, but of course you worked with her in this, and I Want to Hold Your Hand, which I've ordered on Blu-ray. It's not here yet. Just on a side note, do you remember much of John Belushi in this?
Oh, of course. I love John Belushi. One of my treasured pieces of memorabilia from any film that I was in is a picture of him. I'm sitting in a director's chair. Over my shoulders, Robert Stack sitting in a director's chair, and John's coming around and hugging me. I loved him. He was adorable. He was flirtatious. He was funny. We're never actually in the same scene at the same time, but I loved him. But he was I would say a little bit out of control.
Yeah.
Even then. even
I've
then.
heard that.
And so he would come in late, and if he was high, he was impossible. If he wasn't using the drugs, he was great. And but I, as a person, I loved him. I really did. I met him for the first time when Sissy, it was right after Carrie and Sissy did Saturday Night Live.
Mm-hmm.
And I first met him at the after party. And he loved Carrie and he loved my character in Carrie. So he was always flirting with me. He was such a flirt. And, of course, he was madly in love with his wife, but it didn't stop him from flirting. And it didn't stop me from flirting back because I just thought he was so adorable. But he was challenged on this film. He really was. He'd come in late and he'd say, I got 2 hours in me, and they'd have to shoot him then. And, I love his character. I think his character is hysterical. I really do. There's some scenes in this film that just every time I just see him, I just start laughing, So I think he would have, had he lived, I think he would have become a really important actor. I really
think
do.
so too.
I think he had a lot of depth to him as a person. Mm-hmm. And I think that would have, as he evolved, I think his characters would have evolved, and it wouldn't have just been comedy. It would have been probably just the sky's the limit for him.
Yeah. Do you ever let Tim Matheson take you in a plane anymore?
Yeah, no. We saw each other actually at a show a few years back, and he's another total professional, wonderful actor. I loved working with him.
And of course, I want to hold your hand. You develop a relationship with a guitar that I've never seen before.
Yes, that is for sure. I don't think anyone's ever seen anything quite like it. And I've got the Blu-ray, the Criterion Collection Blu-ray. You can see
that's what I ordered. That's what I ordered. Yeah.
It's a fabulous piece of art. I wish that we'd had that for the original poster. I love it. But I had a great time on that. Bob Zemeckis, who was 26 years old when he made that movie, knew everything, knew exactly what he wanted, knew exactly how to shoot it, how to get it, how to work with the actors. And he created a wonderful energy on the set. I loved it. And of course, Bob Gale, who was his co-writer and producer on that film. Steven Spielberg, executive producer, who would wander on the set and come and go, and really enjoyed, and believed in the project. It was a really fun shoot. We had a great time on that movie.
Yeah, Eddie Deason you worked on in both of these movies, as well as Wendy. Eddie Deason's told an interesting story of 1941 where he was feeling ill on the set, and Spielberg let him rest in his trailer. And he said his biggest memory was throwing up in Steven Spielberg's toilet.
Oh, that's hysterical.
Eddie spoke very highly. Yeah, Eddie spoke very highly of you, and he loves Wendy.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Yeah. Totally. Wendy, and of course,
Teresa Saldana.
Yeah, I was going to bring her up. She had an accident after Raging Bull, and we just lost her. Memories of Teresa.
Pardon me?
Memories of Teresa.
Oh my God, Teresa, she was a force to be reckoned with. I mean, she was a bundle of energy and, ready to go, and consummate actress. She loved acting and she loved being on the set. And she was very much like her character of Grace in the movie. That was Teresa. However, I will say, because I went up and did a guest starring on The Commish. She was a co-star in that television series with Michael Chiklis. And she was a changed person after she had been attacked. She was very subdued. Mm-hmm. She was still fun and funny, but she was subdued, and she was beyond cautious. I mean, no one could know where she lived. Everything was very private. She was never the same after that, honestly.
Yeah. No, but nonetheless, Jimmy Presley, who is an author, a horror author that I know, wanted me to ask you what you remember from the set of Poltergeist 3. And I'll add to that Heather O'Rourke.
Oh, okay. So I'll tell you, that was a very difficult shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very difficult shoot. I will say, for me, the best thing about that movie was getting to work with and meet Heather O'Rourke.
Mm-hmm.
And of all the people, she was the youngest person on the set. She wasn't a little actressy. She was a real little girl, very close with her mother. But whenever Heather was on the set, she was like a grounding force, really, in a way, like an old soul. You know what I'm saying? And I'd always think, with all the difficulties, because it was a very challenging shoot, and I just think, oh, Heather's here. And I just had that feeling like it was a calm. She was a very calming presence. And you wouldn't think that about, an adolescent, but that was Heather for me. I don't know what anybody else would say, but that was, for me, that's how I felt. So very tragic end for that poor little girl and for her mother. Very sad.
Okay. The last film I'm going to bring up, I'm going to have you come back next year because I got so many films. I wanted to ask about Acting on the Impulse and Philadelphia, but I'll ask about those next year. But I know people would hate me if I didn't ask about RoboCop, and I have had Ronnie Cox on here. Great guy.
Oh, I love him. We didn't work together, but I love him.
He's a musician now.
Yeah. We're Facebook friends, so I know what's going on over there. So, I got a call from my agent. He said we're sending over a script. They're interested in meeting with you, and they need you to read it right away and just say that you're interested in proceeding or not. And I said, okay. I can remember the script coming. I remember opening it and looking RoboCop. And I'm thinking, what a terrible name. And I first called my agent. I said, come on, they're changing this title. This is terrible, right? And he said, oh, definitely. I'm sure they'll change the title. So I thought, well, I'll read a few pages, thinking I'd already made a decision that based on the title of this was going to be junk, right? So I pick it up and I don't put it down. I read it all in one sitting. I can't stop reading it because I've never read anything like it in my life. It was smart. It was funny. It was all new, nothing like it before. And I thought, oh, it's a cop. I know cops. My father was a cop. I know who this person is. I know what this relationship is about with the partner. And so then I heard that, I said, well, who's directing it? Oh, Paul Verhoeven. Now, who's Paul Verhoeven? Now, what do I know? Oh, Soldier of Orange. I really liked that movie. That was a really good movie. That was all I had seen of his up until that point.
Good thing it was before Showgirls.
Oh, Lord. Yeah. Oh, my God. And so I went over just to meet. I met with him and in his office, and it was him and a few other people, I think the casting person, and we chatted, and he said he'd liked, some of my work. And so I left, and then they asked me to come back and read. And in the script, it talks about it was sort of in the future. And when I got there, people were dressed sort of like in these futuristic outfits. And for some reason, I just put on a pair of khaki pants and a shirt and whatever. And I thought, oh, I guess I didn't get the dress in a jumpsuit, sexy jumpsuit message. And anyhow, I went in to read. Everyone's there. It's Paul, it's John Davison, it's Ed Neumeyer, Michael Miner, Sally Dennison is casting, and who reads with me is Paul Verhoeven. So we read a couple of scenes, and then he says to me, I was thinking you did something in this scene. It's not what I was thinking. Could you try? He asked me to try something specific. And I said, well, can I just go work on it? Can I think about it for a minute? He says, sure, take your time. So I go out, I come back, and we go ahead and read. I said, is that what you were looking for? He says, not at all, but it was very interesting. Which I thought was really funny. Anyway, long story short, I knew on some gut level, I felt this is my part. I knew it was my part. And I went off to do another movie. And then I heard, oh, they cast somebody else. I said, what? No, that can't be right. They can't have cast somebody else. And it was Stephanie Zimbalist. And then, of course, she couldn't do it because she was in her television series and they wouldn't let her out. So then it came back to me, and I was just beyond over the moon that I got to play this character. And it was a great experience. Paul Verhoeven is a brilliant, brilliant filmmaker. He's like a mad scientist. Everything. that energy in the movie where it doesn't stop, that all comes from Paul. That is his energy. That was his energy on the set. He was just like driving this, and we moved. I mean, there was the way that it was shot. There was a bank of fluorescent lights, not very flattering lighting, but there were just these banks of lights, and Jos Vacano had created his own gyro on this camera so that we could set it up like a plane. We could go anywhere. We could do anything. There's just these banks of light. So it was a tough shoot, a challenging shoot, but it was a really fun shoot because you could feel on the set that this was going to be a terrific movie. Now, I never thought from reading the script and from looking at the little bit of dailies that I saw, I thought, well, this is going to be a great movie. I knew that. But I never in a million years thought that this could be a mainstream hit. I thought it was too smart. It was too ahead of its time. So boy, was I wrong about that. I mean, and I think the studio was completely unprepared too. So then when this film came out and just went through the roof, nobody could believe it, and I did the movie, as did Peter, as did most of us, for very, very, very little money, much under what my quote was at the time, but I wanted to do it. And I'm glad I did. And it certainly, in the end, I think being part of such a great project really paid off. I'd love to look back and see that I was right when I read that script, that it really was that good,
I have a question. Whose decision was it for your voice to be different in Blow Out?
Mine.
Yeah, I always found it a little distracting.
And you weren't alone. People either loved it or hated it. Pauline Kael loved it. There was my favorite critic out of Chicago. She was like the arts editor for whatever the paper was there. She wrote, I remember, and I still remember it all these years later. It takes you a full minute to recover every time she opens her mouth. So, and the producer, George Lito, came on the set and he said to me, "Are you going to talk like that through the whole movie?" And I said, yes. Now, my idea behind that voice is, I loved Judy Holliday. I loved her and I loved Julieta Messina in La Strada. But anyway, I love, when I read this character, what I thought about her was, this is a girl that doesn't want to take responsibility for her life. This is a girl who's, letting some guy tell her what to do. And I thought about some girls, women that I knew in my life, that they don't want to really grow up. And they don't want to, they just kind of want to stay, they just kind of want to stay like young and innocent, all the time. And so, you don't really take me terribly seriously because I'm really a nice girl. And I thought, and it always drove me crazy. I'm thinking, this has got to be, it just sort of, for me, it was just organic. It was like, well, that's just Sally, and she was originally called, I think he called her Kate. Brian was always writing, he called his characters Kate or Liz or something. I said, no. This girl is not Kate or Liz or anything like that. She's a Sally, and so that's why the voice. And it worked for some people and it didn't work for some people, like it didn't work for you. So, but you take risks,
Well, I do want you to promote WeSPARK a little bit on here before you go, in honor, of course, of Wendy Jo Sperber, who, of course, died of breast cancer. And you're the executive director. I was so glad to make a donation to this. And I had no problem doing that. And I'm so glad it led to this interview, I was just researching you and I did not know that you were part of this. So I thought, it's, to me, it strengthens my connection with the people I interview, and plus third parties get affected in a good way. So please talk about this.
So, so WeSPARK, Wendy Jo Sperber, as you mentioned, she was the founder of the organization. She was diagnosed with cancer and she was in her late 30s at the time. She had two young children, and she realized that it didn't just affect her, it was affecting really her whole family. Mm-hmm. And at that time, the only way that you could get support was if you were a cancer patient or a hands-on caregiver. And if anyone, I certainly went through, my father had cancer, and I mean, it took a toll on the whole family. So when she first asked me to get involved, it was as a celebrity golfer, and just to help her raise money. So I did that. And then about a year later, she called and she says, oh, I found a place and I'm going to open it. And you have to come over. And I met her there. And she said, I really want you involved. You're really involved and into all that alternative and medicine and, integrative processes like, meditation and yoga and hypnotherapy and all of that. And she's, I need you involved. And in fact, you're going to be, she was a producer, and in her heart, she was a producer. She's, you're going to be the creative program director. And I'm thinking, what is she talking about? But Wendy is one of those people that you could not see. You'd be thinking no, but you'd say, okay, no was not in her vocabulary. So it began, and that was in 2001. So we're actually celebrating 20 years, our 20-year anniversary. And, she unfortunately passed away. Hi, who's that?
It's Skittles.
Skittles? You should meet my kitties. I have 2 black and 1 white. And
oh, yeah?
Anyway,
just come by here, yeah.
It's a sweet I love kitties. I wish mine were nearby. I'd pick them up too. So anyway, she passed away, and then I just continued on and became executive director. And, we have online services, right? Ever since COVID, everything's virtual, everything's free for cancer patients and their families or friends. Look at that face. I just want to smush it.
You hear that? You hear that?
I want to smush it. It's so cute.
Anyway. Yeah.
So anyhow, so that's WeSPARK, and we offer that we're doing at least 20 virtual programs a week. In September, we'll open again, and we'll have a hybrid. So it can, it's not only people in California, it can be people anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world if they can get into our time zone. It's WeSPARK.org, WeSPARK.org. If anyone wants to look at our website and see what we're doing, need the services, make a donation, anything. And thank you for your donation. All the donations, every dollar goes to services. So it was life transformative for me. It's another way of being creative. It's a way of giving back. And it's pretty hard to not finish my day out and feel pretty good about what I've done, being involved with it. So I will be forever grateful to Wendy for getting me involved. And that's it.
Well, you know what? I was happy to. I am going to make another donation in your honor for a Doubtfire Face challenge.
Okay.
Which you and I have talked about. You're open to that?
Yes, I am. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. But don't you send that money till I do it. I'm going to do it, and I've got to get line up my 3 celebrities and see who's going to. Maybe I'll ask Jay, my boyfriend, to give me a pie in the face.
Sure. Yeah. Well, Sandy Johnson, who, of course, was in Halloween. Her husband was dressed up as Michael Myers. Some people are pretty creative. I did one with Lisa Langlois in Toronto, and she did one with her son. She didn't do it with me, but she pied me, and I nominated some people. So I thought I'd throw this out. But yeah, I wouldn't have known about WeSPARK had it not been, because just like with Jessica Harper and PXE, it's just, I was just doing some research and preparation, and I was like, wow. So I don't mind doing that, and yeah. And I really, next year, maybe around this time, I would love to have you back on, because I got so many other questions for you.
Well, you know how to get a hold of me. So you just said it, we'll set it up, no problem. And we've met, we're friends now. So you'll just get a hold of me, and we'll do part 2.
Yeah, we could do that. Well, do you mind if I add you on Facebook? I think you get a Facebook page.
I have 2 Facebook pages.
Yeah, do you mind if I add you?
Yeah, sure.
I'll add you, yep. And my one final question, I asked all my guests, what's the strangest thing you've ever been asked to sign?
Wow. I don't know that I've had that many strange things, but someone did bring in a bucket for me to sign. They did bring a bucket, and I thought, well, that's different, that's for sure. But I can't think of anything. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think my fans are that strange. They usually have pictures.
I would love to see you come down here at one of our cons, and I'd love to meet you. I'd love to get an autographed picture of you if I could, So
Sure.
yeah, I'd be happy to purchase it. I don't mind,
Well, I have your address and I will get you that. How about that?
Yeah, yeah. But I was happy. I know we're 41 years on Dress to Kill, but I was happy to celebrate that talk. I'll have you on next year, and I'll be happy because I got so many other films to talk to you about. But this
Okay.
was such a bucket list for me. I'm so happy to have you on. You have no idea how honored I
Well,
am.
it was a pleasure. And, and I thank you for interviewing me and for making it so much fun.
It was so
So,
much fun. Before
so
I
I
let
will
you
see. Okay.
before I let you go, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
What is it? What do I have to do?
Just say who you are and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Okay.
Okay, go for it.
I'm Nancy Allen, and you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise. Ooh.
There you go. Sexy. You ever been out to
Okay.
New Brunswick before?
I have not.
Yeah, we're that strange. I have a feeling when you hear these wrestlers say they're from parts unknown, I think they're from New Brunswick because nobody knows where we are. We're an hour ahead of New York.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
we
right,
got,
all right, Greg, I'm going to have to run now. I just have to go. We'll
you
catch
know
up
what?
next time.
We will.
And
God bless
we'll
you.
correspond. You can email me anytime.
I will. Absolutely. God bless you. And thank you
You
for allowing me
too.
this honor.
My pleasure.
Bye
Take care.
bye.